was Senator Rand Paul pressing Secretary Kristi Noem about the massive $46 billion request tied to border wall funding. He framed it as a numbers game, saying if a mile of border wall costs roughly $12 million and you multiply that by the miles left to build, you'd come out with a fraction of what's being requested.
We talked a little bit about the wall earlier. The administration has asked for $46.5 billion for the wall. The border on the Mexican border is about 1,950 miles. We've fenced or walled about 700 of it. That leaves about 1,200 miles. There's 200 or 300 miles of it that probably never going to have a fence on. It's mountainous or just impossible to fence or wall. So I would say realistically, you got under 1,000. But let's just say there's 1,000. You really want to wall in 1,000. CBP says it's 6.5 million per mile. Your response today was 12 million per mile. That means $12 billion for 1,000 miles. We're off here by a factor of 3 or 4 with 46 billion. Where's the rest of the 46 billion? The administration says they want 46 billion for a wall. You could pave all of it and still have, 34 billion left over. What's the 34 billion going for?
Yes, Senator, thank you for the question. We do have 702 miles of wall today. 598 of that are steel. The rest of that is temporary that's in place. Since the president's been in office, over 70 miles has been erected. We have 11 contracts that have gone out and allocated. We also have 5 more that are pending. Based on the dollars that have been requested, it's not just the infrastructure that would be built that would be the actual wall construction. It would be also surveillance equipment.
The number's way off. 1,000. You could do 1,000 miles for 12 billion. You're asking for 46 billion. So I'm one who's not impressed and would have to see more detail as to where the rest of the money goes. We can't just throw $30 billion out there and say things cost a lot.
I agree. We'll get you the specifics on that.
With regard to the drones and all the preparatory work that DHS does and the government does for the NFL and for FIFA, does the NFL pay DHS for the work you do?
Boy, not to my knowledge. I will.
Well, I mean, here's my point. The NFL makes billions of dollars. We're $2 trillion in the hole. I don't care if government shares their technology and government helps out the World Cup, but they ought to pay.
Yeah,
People are paying hundreds of dollars for tickets. I mean, thousands of dollars for the NFL, for Super Bowl and things. They're also paying for FIFA, and so these people ought to pay. And so I'm one holding up these authorizations, and I'll let them go forward, but I want people to pay. I mean, it's ridiculous that the average taxpayer who could never afford to go to an NFL Super Bowl has got to pay for their security. Should the government help? If we have technology they don't, perhaps. But they ought to pay. So NFL, FIFA, I think they ought to pay. And we'll be insisting on trying to put language in that. If you're a for-profit entity and the government's helping you, you ought to pay for it. With regard to TSA Quiet Skies and Tulsi Gabbard situation, I suspect there are going to be other people that were caught up in this thing as well. I'm horrified by the idea that we took a former congresswoman and we're surveilling her and riding on jets with her. There was another story of an air marshal whose wife, might have been at January 6th or something, and now we're, have air marshals following another air marshal or his wife. So I want to hear the whole story of what happened. I want to hear that people have been let go, that they're no longer doing this. If there were abuses of Tulsi Gabbard's liberties, I want to hear from that. But I want repercussions to come from this. And I think you've said something's coming. Please let us know, and let us know how the program the destruction of civil liberties can be minimized. I frankly probably have trouble with the whole program, but let's see if there's some way. But we need significant reform. If it needs legislation, please come to us with that. Thank you for your testimony today.
Thank you.
His message? Something doesn't add up. But let's pause and look beneath the surface, because this moment is about far more than math on a page. First, the very premise of pouring tens of billions into a wall raises questions about priorities. The United States faces real challenges at the border, but experts across administrations, Democratic and Republican, have made it clear walls don't solve the root issues. Migration isn't driven by a lack of barriers. It's driven by violence in Central America, economic collapse, corruption, drug cartels, climate displacement, and broken U.S. immigration laws. People don't risk their lives crossing deserts because of a missing fence panel. They do it because they have no choice. So the real solution requires smarter investments, immigration judges to clear backlogs, legal pathways that reduce illegal crossings, advanced technology to monitor dangerous areas, and humanitarian aid that stabilizes the regions people are fleeing from. Rand Paul's question about where's the rest of the $46 billion going exposes something bigger. This isn't about securing the border, it's about political theater. Walls are powerful campaign props. They create a visual symbol that can be sold to voters as strength, even though the data shows that walls are expensive, easily bypassed, and ineffective against things like drugs, which overwhelmingly enter through legal ports of entry hidden in vehicles, not across remote deserts. When Republicans demand tens of billions for a wall, it's not about protecting America. It's about feeding a narrative. Then Paul pivots to an interesting point about the NFL and FIFA. He says, why should taxpayers subsidize security for billion-dollar entertainment corporations? Why should someone working 2 jobs, struggling to pay rent, have their tax dollars go to securing events they'll never afford to attend? On its face, that argument sounds populist, and there's truth to it. Corporations that make billions absolutely should be responsible for their own security costs. But here's the catch. Republicans like Rand Paul rarely, if ever, demand that these corporations pay their fair share in taxes. The same politicians who rail about taxpayer-funded sports events are often the first to hand out massive tax breaks to those very corporations. So the outrage sounds good, but the follow-through is never there. If Rand Paul is truly worried about working families subsidizing billionaires, then let's see him push to close corporate tax loopholes, hold companies accountable, and demand fair wages. That's where Democrats are consistent. We want corporations to contribute to the common good, not freeload off the public. And then there's the third pivot. Paul raising concerns about surveillance abuses, citing Tulsi Gabbard being flagged under TSA's Quiet Skies program. Protecting civil liberties is important. No American should be unjustly surveilled or treated as a suspect without cause. But here again, there's a glaring hypocrisy. Republicans sound the alarm when surveillance touches their allies, but they're often silent or even supportive when that same surveillance is aimed at immigrants, activists, or marginalized communities. Democrats, on the other hand, have long argued that national security cannot come at the cost of civil rights, and reforming these programs should be bipartisan. If Republicans really care about liberty, it shouldn't just be for politicians or high-profile figures, it should be for every American. So what ties all of this together? Rand Paul wants to wear 3 hats at once: the fiscal hawk, the populist, and the civil libertarian. But when you dig deeper, each position comes up short. As a fiscal hawk, he has no problem with the $2 trillion tax giveaway to billionaires under Trump. As a populist, he rails against NFL subsidies but refuses to challenge corporate greed. As a civil libertarian, he decries government overreach only when it's convenient. It's selective outrage dressed up as principle. This is where Democrats have to stand firm and offer the real alternative. We want smart, targeted border investments, not vanity projects that waste taxpayer dollars. We want corporations to pay their fair share, not rely on working families to subsidize their profits. And we want liberty and security for all Americans, not just for the politically connected. And here's the call to action. Don't get lost in the back and forth of these hearings. Ask yourself, where should our money really be going? Should we sink $46 billion into walls that don't solve the problem? Or should we invest in schools, healthcare, infrastructure, and a fair immigration system that actually works? Should billion-dollar corporations keep dodging accountability while ordinary Americans carry the burden? Or should they finally contribute like the rest of us? These are the questions that matter. So stay engaged, keep asking the hard questions, and demand better. Because at the end of the day, government spending should reflect our values. And our values should be about building a stronger, fairer America for everyone, not just the wealthy few.